Hi everyone, Rachel from North Brisbane Psychologists here. Wanted to make a quick video about maturity. It comes up quite often in my sessions with clients, and I think in everyday conversation. This word maturity and people being described as mature or immature. Wanted to make the link for you between vulnerability and maturity. So what I think we mean when we call someone immature, I think one of the things we mean is defensive. Now, I take as a psychologist a very broad view of defensiveness. So to me, our defenses can be everything from aggression and judgment and anger and even violence in very obvious forms, to avoidance and running away, to begging and pleading and scrambling for approval and love. All of the things that we do as a defense against feeling vulnerable. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which is fawning is trying to win people's approval and love through, crawling and, scrambling after their affections, however subtly. These are our defenses. And children are naturally very defensive. I have 3 of them myself, and I see on a regular basis how defensive they are. It wasn't me, it was her. Oh, it wasn't my fault. Everyday forms of defensiveness is pretty common in children and adults. It's pretty hard for a child to say, you know what, I did probably contribute to that problem. You know what, I probably could have done that differently. You know what, I made a mistake, I messed up. It's hard for them to do that because, as I said in one of my previous videos, the one about how my dentist taught me about defenses, go back and watch it if you haven't already, I said that children are like bundles of nerve endings. They're so sensitive, so vulnerable, which is what we love about them. They're so open and honest and innocent, but they're also really vulnerable. So much so that it's very hard for them to tolerate excessive vulnerability. And they're very sensitized to criticism, judgment, rejection, abandonment. Of course, this is survival stuff. So children are very defensive. They don't know another way, and they don't have the resources and confidence to cope with vulnerability. So then we reach adulthood. And in adulthood, if we haven't learned how to cope with feeling vulnerable, then we're going to continue the defensiveness from childhood. And sometimes people can get very far in their professional lives and still be very defended, very defensive. But in their personal lives, it can be their undoing. Their marriages can become very disconnected, full of conflict, or end up, having a series of relationships, lots of breakups, finding it very difficult to assert themselves, so becoming submissive, the people pleaser, sort of scrambling for approval, like I said before, the fawning behaviour. But none of these to me represent real maturity. Real maturity is hard because it's a lowering of our old defenses. First of all, we have to know what we've been using to defend ourselves all this time. Is it fight? Is it flight? Is it freeze? Or is it fawn? Or is it a mixture? Or do we have mixed states, as they call them? We can be in both flight and fight at the same time, which is sort of a numb anxiety. We can be in flight and fawning, people pleasing. We can have a mixture of things going on. Our nervous system is complex. But we need to figure out, once we're an adult, what defenses against vulnerability and shame have I been using? Because if I continue to use them, I will not mature, I will not progress, I will not grow as a person. One of the things we must do if we want to grow and mature, be mature people, is learn how to lower those defenses, learn how to tolerate feeling vulnerable. It's a vulnerable thing, me making these videos and putting them on the internet. I don't know what people are going to think or say. It's a vulnerable thing for me still, to walk into a room full of people, to walk into a party, even to get a new client, shake their hand, well, not at the moment, and and say, you know, I'm Rachel, and it's probably a very vulnerable, well, not probably, it is a vulnerable thing for them to say, you know, hi, I'm Jane or whatever. And there's so many moments of vulnerability, and it gets, you know, more and more vulnerable when we have to deal with disagreements and difficulties and assert our needs, but stay open to other people's needs. So I could go on, as you know, but that's what I wanted to say about maturity. I think maturity is learning to be non-defensive. That is a big, ongoing learning curve, a huge journey. So if you would like to learn non-defensive listening, non-defensive communication, non-defensive ways of living, and you'll never be perfect at it because sometimes our defenses are necessary and sometimes they're automatic. But the less defensive we are, the more open and authentic we are, and the more maturity I believe we have. So if you've got any questions about maturity or our defenses, leave me a comment or a question below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.